This is PPC Zone October 2025 Challenging Assumptions. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. I use the pronouns she and her. I'm a Google Ads coach, ex-Googler, and the founder of the Inside Google Ads course, podcast, and book. I created PPC Zone in 2022 to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. Whether you're tuning in live, watching the replay on YouTube or LinkedIn, or listening in your podcast app, here's what you can expect. 3 speakers will share their expertise in a 7-minute presentation each. Then we'll answer your questions in a live panel and wrap it all up in under an hour. Before we get started, I do want to mention that if you're running ads in Europe, Google's consent mode isn't optional anymore. You can't properly track conversions without it, which means your campaigns are flying blind and you're wasting ad spend. That's where our sponsor, Cookiebot by Usercentrics, comes in. Cookiebot automatically manages user consent on your site, and it connects seamlessly with Google Consent Mode. With Cookiebot, your Google Ads campaigns keep their conversion tracking and analytics optimization even when users opt out of cookies. This means more accurate reporting, smarter bidding, and better ROI. I use Cookiebot on my own website. It is quick and easy to set up. If I can do it, you can do it. And it lets me turn compliance into my competitive edge. You can sign up for a free trial of Cookiebot by Usercentrics, all while supporting PPC Zone by going to consent.ppc.zone. That's consent.ppc.zone to start your free trial of Cookiebot by Usercentrics. Consent.ppc.zone. First up in the zone is the founder and president of Digital for Startups, Inc., a full-service marketing agency. Today, she's here to share 7 simple questions for PPC success. It is with great pleasure that I introduce you to Reva Minkoff. Welcome, Reva.
Hey, Jill, thanks so much for having me. Hey, everybody. Today, I am excited to talk to you all about 7 simple questions for PPC success. I think one of my superpowers is getting PPC to sound simple from the crazy. And so hopefully this will help you all feel like you have what you need, no matter whether you're beginner or advanced, as you look through your campaigns to think about whether they're going to work going forward. So the first question I think you need to, it's important to ask is, what are you trying to accomplish? So what are your objectives? What are your goals? The closer you can get to your campaign, to what you're trying to actually achieve, the better it will do. And I mean that by being specific. So if you're a travel site and you're looking for reservations, or a B2B site and you want them to download a white paper or submit a lead, make sure you identify that specifically, as opposed to yourself at least, as opposed to trying to just say, oh, I just want them to go to the website, or I just want them to convert. Once you know what you're trying to achieve, you can then figure out how best to bid on it. So there's an increasingly large number of options when it comes to paying for online ads. You can do maximize conversions, maximize conversion value, target CPA, target ROAS, maximize clicks. There's still manual options. There are new maximize profit options coming coming online soon. So as you're thinking about this, it really helps to tie it back to your goal and pick the bidding option that most aligns with what you're trying to achieve. If a lot of leads sounds fantastic, but not if they come in at more than your target CPA, make sure that you use target CPA so that you can target your cost per acquisition. If you don't have conversion tracking in place, you may be stuck with maximize clicks or manual bidding, and that's okay. But again, think about what you're trying to do, and also how fast you can get conversions in to then pick a goal that better aligns with what you're looking for. The third question is, what are you paying for? Because these providers are increasingly providing a large number of options in terms of how you're actually charged, which is very different from how you actually bid. So make sure, especially on Meta and Google, that you know if it's pay per click or pay per impression. There are some other platforms that give you options around pay per action, pay per visitor. A platform used to have pay per engaged visitor that let you pay a little bit more on the platform if you only were going to pay for visitors who stayed for 30 seconds or more, which was, in my opinion, totally worth the extra 25 cents. And some cases will even let you pay per event RSVP or follower, which again, if that's what you're looking to achieve with your campaign, that's probably a better payment model for you than pay per click or pay per impression. So really think about how you can get this as close to what you're trying to achieve as possible. The fourth thing is to think about when and where you're paying for it. So I know that some of this is a little bit controversial, but I think it's really important to make sure that your ads are only showing when your business is open, people can only call when you can answer, and that the ads are only showing to your potential customers. So in my opinion, if you have a pizza place and you don't sell pizza after 11 o'clock at night because you're normally a restaurant, I would probably not be showing my ads from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. When people are looking for pizza that they want to get for late night, because you won't be able to fulfill what they're looking for, and they're just going to be frustrated. You're paying for traffic you can't use. In addition, if you have a call center and you're B2B and that call center doesn't work on the weekends, I probably wouldn't show the ads on the weekends, because when they call looking for an immediate conversion, no one's going to be able to talk to them. So I think that these are good ways to save money. My favorite story about ads showing to potential customers is one of my first clients was my guitar teacher, and he he only taught in a particular county in New York State, but he was advertising his ads to all of New York State. And if you're familiar with New York State, you know it's very large. So while he taught basically right outside New York City, his ads were showing up in Buffalo and Rochester, which is 7 hours away. So when we changed his ads to only show where he teaches, all of his KPIs increased over 1,000%, and I was a genius. It's not rocket science, but it was very helpful in this particular area. So again, make sure that your ads are really showing to people you mean to reach. How are you targeting? So it's important to think about what you're targeting to. There are so many options for targeting. My personal favorite are in-market audiences. If you're doing anything with e-com, or honestly B2B and leads as well, if you can find people who are looking for the thing that you are selling, it is more likely that they are going to convert and be warmer than if you were just going to target them based on, say, age and gender. So do make sure you think about the best, again, way to target towards your goal. And of course, does the user experience match what you advertised? So landing pages are one of the most important things when it comes to the online experience. You want to make sure that the searcher is going to what you're promising them that you are going to take them to. If the promise doesn't match, you are less likely to get conversions and more likely to have unhappy people. My favorite example of this, I live in Chicago, and I'm in a neighborhood called Logan Square. And somebody was advertising for a sunny Logan Square apartment. So what would you expect to see? Your answers would probably include things like sun and windows, a well-lit space. But this is their ad, which, as you can see, was dimly lit. And of course, people took them to task in the comments section that everything was dark. So this is just an example, right, of how it's probably not worth advertising. Now, luckily, they weren't paying for this. It was just a Facebook post. But if they were, it would be a big waste of money. And even on the Facebook post, right, they're not going to get the people that they're looking for. So make sure that when you advertise, if you're advertising something sunny, show sun, show windows. If you're advertising a product, show them that product at that price. Lastly, the most important thing is to make sure you're testing. Test, always be testing. And I think our next speaker is going to speak about that a little bit as well. But Optimizely and the visual website optimizer are great ways you can do website landing page tests without needing to code. Google has experiment features, which can be very powerful. Meta has experiment features now. No matter what you're using, make sure you're testing and never stopping testing. If you are only running one ad at a time, you're missing an opportunity to learn and to make your program better. So with that, I will leave this up for a second. These are my 7 questions. What's your goal? How are you bidding? What are you paying for? When and where are you being charged for it? Who are you targeting with your ads? Does your user experience match what you advertised? And last but not least, are you testing? So Google and pay-per-click in general can be complicated. I said, hopefully this helps make it a little bit simpler as you're thinking about where and when to advertise. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you so much, Reva, for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the zone. If you'd like to connect with Reva Minkoff, you can find her on LinkedIn. And if you have a question for Reva, go ahead and type it into the chat if you're watching this live on YouTube or LinkedIn right now, and we will get to your questions during our upcoming live panel. Before our next speaker, I want to remind you that if you're tuning in from Europe, or even if you're located in North America and advertising in Europe, Google's consent mode isn't optional anymore. You cannot properly track conversions without it, which means your campaigns are flying blind and you're wasting ad spend. That's where Cookiebot by Usercentrics comes in. Cookiebot automatically manages user consent on your site, and it connects seamlessly with Google Consent Mode. I use Cookiebot on my own website. It is quick and easy to set up, and it lets me turn compliance into my competitive edge. You can sign up for a free trial of Cookiebot by Usercentrics while supporting PPC Zone by going to consent.ppc.zone. That's consent.ppc.zone to start your free trial of Cookiebot by Usercentrics. Next up in the zone, this speaker is a digital marketer with 10 years of experience working with clients like Uniqlo and Conair. Today, she's sharing her perspective on how to experiment your way to excellence. Please welcome Mel Katz.
Hello, thank you for the wonderful introduction, Jyll. As she mentioned, this is Experiment to Excellence, designing marketing tests that drive results. We're going to go through a few different testing formats that you may be familiar with and some may be new to you. So to get started, we have our very common A/B test. You've probably seen or ran these before where it's a single variable. Maybe you're running one version on your landing page and you have a second landing page version. You're comparing that performance. It's commonly used for like landing pages, emails, product pages, etc. Multivariate tests are used for similar types of content, so landing pages and emails as well. But you're using multiple iterations of content and you're determining which of those elements are driving that strong performance. Something that's a little bit less common would be like lift testing, which is you're comparing things like awareness, consideration. It's more of those soft, mushy top of funnel metrics that might otherwise be difficult to capture. This is really more common in paid media to record what that lift is like from running those ads. And you're seeing how your ad performs against a population versus a control population that does not get your ad. And then if you think about it, a holdout test is the inverse of this, where it's you're running your marketing program except to a specific audience, demographic, or community to determine what the opportunity cost looks like if you were to scale it. Now, Reva covered a lot of great questions, and I'm going to add a few as well. So talking about what type of tests are we running, what you can run one of the ones that I just mentioned, or maybe a different type, determining the length of the test that you're going to run. And you want to factor in things like scaling, giving it sufficient time to gather insights and data to make decisions, determining your metric for success. So commonly you could use a key performance metric like cost per click, click-through rate, session duration. I'm also going to emphasize the importance of following a secondary as well as a primary KPI. So you have your primary, what you're looking at, and then secondary KPIs that can help inform your overall performance and provide context for that first KPI. And then most importantly, why are we running this at all? What are we trying to determine? So what is the point of this? And then also, what are we doing with this information as soon as we've gathered it, and how are we going to act on it? I'm going to throw you back very quickly to grade school and the scientific method. So we're going to take this and purpose it for an example test. So for example, we have our observation. So maybe you notice that listing images with a green background are the strongest performers. So you ask a question based off of that information. So if we were to add a green background to other product image listings, or listing images rather, will it lift the sales of those items? Based off of both of these, you create a hypothesis. So this is our educated guess based on what we know. So based on what we've seen, we would predict that listings with the new green background would perform better, and then acting this out in an experiment. So we could do an A/B test with product listings, maybe one with a current image, one with a new image, and compare how it performs based off of traffic sent to them. We're going to roll with the example of an A/B test because it's the most straightforward test format. So here's an example of how you could capture data in a performance table. So here's our product unit sold table. That's our KPI. We just want to see the gross volume. I'm going to include our test months. So we have weeks broken out 1 through 4. We also have 2 pre-test weeks, so we can get a sense of the cadence of how things are selling before we even plug in this new variable. So looking at this, you might look at our totals, total volume. Variant A, let's say, is our new iteration of the product with the green background. And it looks like it maybe didn't perform as well as variant B. So end of test, right? Well, I want to remind you back to where we talked about secondary KPIs, because supporting KPIs can tell us a lot about what this information means in context. So if we use our secondary KPIs of conversion rate and year-over-year unit sales, we actually find some really interesting things. Instead, we find that there is a lift phenomenon being provided with the addition of the new product listing. So actually, interestingly enough, there's enough volume created by both iterations that, let's say, it lifts the overall performance. So year over year, you're actually up because of that significant contribution because of both iterations. Interesting. And then also you might find that, so it's driving people, maybe different people are buying from the different iterations. So that can inform your next decision, right? So maybe we need to have more variants with product listings, or maybe we can act on this with more varieties of product listing posted. In previous years, something like data visualization would have been a section about how to use Excel to create data-focused charts. Instead, we now have AI. So this was a chart created off of the previous example data that was made in under a minute. So I think of this as being a prompt engineer. So I plugged in my inputs. I asked it to create a weekly performance chart comparing the variance and then showing the conversion rates, as well as providing it with the date range that we're using to compare. But the note of caution here is that you always want to QA your outputs. And what I tell my direct reports is to treat your language learning models like an intern. The first output might not be correct. So I want to leave you with a few considerations. One is that you want to be clear about what your objective or objectives are before launching. You want to make sure that you're clear about what your variable or multiple variables are at a time. You need to allow enough time for optimization. So something that I didn't mention in the previous slide was maybe the version B that had been running without the green background, maybe that had more time to optimize over, it would have had more time to optimize over the green variant background. So maybe if there's additional time given, there could be different results. Comparing variants under similar conditions, so it could be like things like seasonality, different audience buying patterns that can fluctuate when year over year is not being used as a constant. Looking for indirect and direct effects, and balancing your quantitative results with what you know about your audience and their shopping patterns. And then finally, documenting your learning and using that to inform your future tests. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you got something valuable out of this presentation.
Thank you so much, Mel, for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the Zone. If you'd like to connect with Melanie Katz, you can find her on LinkedIn. And if you have a question for Mel, be sure to drop it into the chat if you're watching live on YouTube or LinkedIn right now, and we'll get to your questions during the upcoming live panel. If you're just tuning in, you may not realize that if you're running ads in Europe at all, even if you're serving one measly impression, Google's consent mode is not optional anymore. You can't track conversions without it, which means your campaigns are flying blind and you're wasting ad spend. That's where Cookiebot by Usercentrics comes in. Cookiebot automatically manages user consent on your website, and it connects seamlessly with Google Consent Mode. I use Cookiebot on my own website. It is quick and easy to set up, and it lets me turn compliance into my competitive edge. You can sign up for a free trial of Cookiebot by Usercentrics, all while supporting PPC Zone by going to consent.ppc.zone. That's consent.ppc.zone to start your free trial of Cookiebot by Usercentrics. Our final speaker in the zone today is one of the country's foremost leaders on the topic of selling and marketing products on Amazon.com. She is the co-founder of Marketplace Blueprint, a digital agency that specializes in listing optimization and advertising on Amazon. She's going to reassure us that you're not crazy, Amazon is. Unexpected factors that will impact advertising for Amazon. Please welcome Robyn Johnson.
Hello, I am so excited to share. Amazon is a backwards, upside down place. I tell people that it's kind of like Disney's Alice in Wonderland. It looks like a butterfly, but it's actually a bread and butterfly. So if you're struggling on Amazon, here's some things that commonly cause issues. I'm not going to get too far into who I am, but I've been eating, sleeping, breathing Amazon for about 15 years. So I'm excited to share. Now, Amazon looks like a search engine, just like every other search engine, but it behaves very differently. It's the most capitalistic search engine on earth. What Amazon cares about is conversions. And so that means that ads impact organic. And that completely changes the way that we strategize, because we start with a great listing, we start with focusing on SEO, but then we really rely on Amazon for organic ranking, that we use advertising and coupons to cause conversions, which then lead to reviews, which optimizes the listing, and so on and so forth. So when we're looking at Amazon, we want to remember that Amazon on advertising is like fighting with a toddler. Pick your battles, but win at all costs. So what doesn't work on Amazon is trying to just get incremental sales or spreading a small budget across a lot of products and a lot of keywords. You want to focus in on what advertising targets are actually going to cause you to get organic rank for keywords that are not overly broad, but that will convert really, really well for your product. Now, the other thing to consider is that some ad types on Amazon, sponsored products and sponsored display, will only run when you have the buy box. So if you run out of stock, that's not a big deal. The ads will stop running. Sponsored brands will run even when you don't have inventory on hand or a reseller is selling. The thing that makes that tricky is if you are doing sponsored products for something that comes in red, blue, and green, and you're selling red, blue, and a reseller is selling green, that even if you're out of stock of those other two colors, there's always going to be some people that come in from one ad type, and then they might pick a different color or a different size. So when you're running variations, it's important that you own the buy box on all of the variations in that product detail page. Inventory also is impacted by ad performance. So for sponsored products, Amazon will start showing that inventory for ads when the inventory is not even at Amazon's warehouse, but on the way. And Amazon customers, as one of them, I will tell you, we are spoiled brats. We expect everything now. And so when your delivery time says a week out, it might as well not be even available. So what we want to make sure that ads that are going to show an extended date are not going to have ads, because that can tank your ad performance and cause you to negate important keywords. So we recommend that you turn ads off unless there's extenuating, there's other circumstances, that if there's less than 2 weeks of inventory, you turn ads off before you run out. And then we only turn them back on once the inventory is fully received at Amazon, not just at the warehouses, but completely available. The other issue is buy box issues. So if you are in low stock or out of stock, then that can cause some problems where it might show a longer delivery date, or it could show, or you might have some deliverability issues because the inventory is not close to the customer that's looking at the product. The other big one is resellers. If you have a lot of resellers, especially if you're selling something in brick and mortar and you're trying to sell it direct to consumer on Amazon, if they have a lower price, or you could be sharing the buy box. So there's very specific strategies that come in when you go into bigger box distribution and when you have a lot of wholesale resellers that are selling your product alongside with you. The last one that gets brands that seems unexpected is the price suppressions. So if Amazon sees that there's a better price on Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart, then it will take away the buy box, keeping you from running ads, and it will hurt your conversion rate. So we need to be thinking, even in other distribution channels, of how pricing is, and sometimes setting up Amazon-only SKUs or retail-only SKUs to help making sure that those are materially different, to make sure that you're able to have consistent ads on Amazon. The new thing is that Amazon is in its compliance era. So we are really eating, breathing, sleeping a lot of different kind of compliance issues. If you're dealing with getting verified in Brazil, you're not the only one. You have to have a passport in order to get that to go through. And then with things like you could get your ads could get shut down, or your listing could get shut down because of a missing compliance document, a listing policy, and it could even be something like, if you have an antimicrobial sock, you can't say antimicrobial or deters mold if you don't have an EPA registration number. So knowing Amazon's policies are what's really vital to keep your products alive. And then VOC is voice of the customer. If you're not checking your voice of the customer at least twice per week on Amazon, you're really missing out. It is how we identify products that could have an ASIN restriction before that happens. It saves our clients thousands and thousands of dollars every year in lost sales. So make sure you're reviewing voice of the customer and proactively changing and updating listings, even if you think that the complaints that the customer has aren't valid. Amazon can be an upside down and backwards kind of place. So if you ever need any help or want to reach out for support, you can reach out to me via email or LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Robyn, for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the Zone. If you'd like to connect with Robyn Johnson, you can find her on LinkedIn. And if you have a question for Robyn, go ahead and type it into the chat now if you're watching live on YouTube or LinkedIn, as we are about to get started with our live panel. Let's bring all of our speakers back on screen now. This is PPC Zone October 2025, and we're talking about challenging assumptions. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. I'm a Google Ads coach, ex-Googler, and the founder of the Inside Google Ads course, podcast, and book. I created this event in 2022 to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. I'm here with Reva Minkoff, president of Digital for Startups, Inc., who just spoke about 7 simple questions for PPC success. I'm here with Mel Katz, digital marketer, who just spoke about designing marketing tests that drive results. And I'm here with Robyn Johnson, co-founder of Marketplace Blueprint, who just spoke about unexpected factors that impact advertising for Amazon. This event is exclusively sponsored by Cookiebot by Usercentrics, which automatically manages user consent on your site. Consent mode for Google and Microsoft, thank you, Nava, is mandatory if you're advertising in Europe, and it's easy to comply and protect your ad investment with Cookiebot. You can sign up for a free trial of Cookiebot by Usercentrics, all while supporting PPC Zone at consent.ppc.zone. Well, my wonderful speakers, I learned so much from each of you today. And so I'm seeing some questions here that I want to make sure we ask you while I have you here live today. So first of all, Reva, something you mentioned that I think a lot of people might not realize is that depending what ad platform you're using, what campaign type you're using, even though our industry is PPC, pay per click, you may actually be paying per impression or paying per engagement. So do you have any tips for folks on how they might find out how they're actually being billed for their ads if they're not sure?
Totally. So I think, to your point, it has become surprisingly common to be billed for something that is other than what you think that you are being charged for. And I think a lot of the platforms have switched to it, to try to make more money. But regardless, there are a few places you can look. On Google, I like to check my transactions in the billing tab so I can see how I'm being charged. There are a number of campaign types that will charge you twice. So you'll see one charge for per click and one charge for per impressions. So you can see that it's doing both. So that's helpful just to be aware that it's happening. Meta also kind of hides it. But you could see there in the advanced settings, there's a place where you can kind of say, charge me for this or charge me, what am I being charged for? Again, they're making it harder to change those options, but I think it's still really important to know which is which. I'm sure Robyn can speak a little bit more to Amazon and how they're charging on these, but they are trying to, they are a little bit more hidden, but where you're still able to manipulate them, it can be a real money saver.
It's really interesting. Yeah, Robyn, on Amazon PPC, how how are you charged? Is it kind of similar to what Reva's been talking about? Like it sort of depends, or is it always kind of on one metric?
Well, it's with the self-managed stuff, it's pretty much always on one metric. It's always going to be a CPC kind of base. And then they have the bidding. The bidding is a little bit different than it is on other things, and relevancy is a lot more important. So, like they will look at the relevancy of for conversions in the past and for the category. But on the billing side, it's pretty much CPC unless you're using like the DSP, which is like programmatic ads.
Got it. And that would be impression based, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Just to keep us all on our toes. Well, while I have you, Robyn, a lot of folks who speak at PPC Zone and who watch PPC Zone may be more used to Google ads or Microsoft ads or Meta ads, and may not be as familiar with the Amazon ad platform. And so I'm curious if you could share with us, if someone is like opening up the Amazon ads platform for the first time, coming with PPC knowledge, but not Amazon ads knowledge, do you have any tips or tricks you'd share with them, or like common mistakes to avoid?
Yeah, so I would Google Amazon Learning Console, and Amazon has a free walkthrough, and almost all of it is correct. It's a pretty good place, but it's a good place to kind of get the terminology because they'll use the same word but slightly differently sometimes. And then I would say when we're looking at ads, one of the big things that's different from Google Ads is because ads impact organic, where you might not bid on your own branded keywords in Google because that might seem like cannibalization. It's very important on Amazon to do that. So if you look at Lego, if you search Lego, you'll see on page 1, usually there's 1 or 2 non-Lego items. And that's if I run enough ads on your branded keyword, then I can start to outrank you organically for your own brand. So there is a much more of a defensive strategy that needs to be involved. And you want to make sure that you're doing multiple ad types, multiple match types. And then utilizing video is something that's fairly new relatively to the Amazon space. It's been around for a while, but can really be powerful. So remembering to kind of manage majority of the budget towards sponsored products and keyword orientation. But now there's lots of other targeting and retargeting abilities that if you haven't looked in the last 2 years, you might not know are there.
I feel like that was just like a 60-second Amazon ads masterclass. I love it. Thank you, Robyn. Now, Mel, you shared some great insights for setting up experiments and following the scientific method. And I'm curious if you have any tips for avoiding analysis paralysis, right? There's so much data at our fingertips. It can be kind of overwhelming to know where to even start to analyze an experiment. So what tips do you have for folks to avoid analysis paralysis?
Yeah, totally. And it's totally easy to do to just get yourself bound up in data. I think what you have to do if you find yourself in a situation where you are just drowning in some numbers, to step back and ask yourself, okay, so which one is going to drive the result that we want? So, is it going to be, what are we looking at? Are we looking at our cost per conversion? Are we looking at, building that conversion volume? So which ultimately at the end of the day is going to do the most to push that? So that's really what I do when I find myself in that type of situation. And then making sure that you're contextualizing as well. So it's great that, we're seeing so much more volume on this number, but what does this okay, great. But what does this mean in terms of the context of our overall performance? So you have to really frame things within your bottom line. So is it helping your revenue? Is it growing your awareness? So at the end of the day, that's where you need your conclusion to lead to.
God, it reminds me of something my AP American history teacher used to always say. There's the what, and then there's the so what. And actually, I just ran into her 2 weeks ago for the first time in 20 years. And I said, guess what? I still say the what and the so what. And she was like, I still teach that too. But it's so true. There's the what, and then so what? Why does this matter? Why do we care? So great perspective to focus on that. And then something that you mentioned as well in your talk, Mel, that I think is top of mind for all of us, as well as everyone watching or listening, is LLMs and AI and how to start incorporating those as part of our workflow. So I will come to all three of you, but perhaps we'll start with you, Mel. What's one way that you're using generative AI this year that's been helpful in your business, in your work?
Oh, so many. I'm part of a very small team right now, so it does a lot. But I think one of the big uses is using it for that graphing and charting. So using it for that BI and data viz.
Awesome. And what about you, Robyn? What's one way that you're using AI this year that's helping you in your business?
I'm not as AI forward as everybody else. I'm a little afraid the robots are going to come kill us, but not really. But we use it to like summarize. I have a couple of analysts on my team that are great, but they might answer an account with a question with like 3 words, and so I have them put bullet points and then have it. We call it fluffing up the email. So I used to have to manually fluff those up, and then data analysis, but then always trust but verify. Those kinds of things. So that's kind of where we've been using. We don't use it in the graphics just because with the brands that we use, it's too easy for there to be something that's, a trademark or a copyright that would be in the background. So we try to stay out of that. And it can, but for the AI, we have that's, I don't know why I got so weird about that, but that's how we're using it.
It's very fair. We've all got strong feelings about these robots.
Yes.
So I can definitely relate to that. What about you, Reva? What's one way you're using AI in your business this year that's been helpful?
Totally. So I mean, I agree with Robyn in that we've definitely approached it with a lot of caution, and not for image generation, because there's just too much risk of it providing the wrong image of the wrong thing or something that's not on brand, or something of a different brand. Anyway, just no. But we like Mel, I've also used it for some of the data analysis, especially if I need to make a graph or a chart or a visualization that's not like a line graph or a bar graph or a pie chart. It allows me to do some more complicated analysis visualization without needing to remember everything I learned in stats in college. We also use it to help us find keywords. So I mean, in a way, I think it's what the Google Keywords tool has been doing for a long time, but to be able to give it a website or a keyword and say, hey, what's like this? Again, definitely needs a human eye on saying, is this actually like this? But it's a really good place to help you get started.
Interesting. Yeah, I find I've been using it more in the content side of my business, not to write content for me, but to repurpose content. And a way I've been using it more recently is when I'm trying to write my newsletter. I send a newsletter every other week that's like a real Google Ads case study from one of my coaching calls. And so I just start talking to it. And I'm like, the call was kind of like this and that happened and the other. And I want to make sure I mention this point and that point. And I just got verbal diarrhea into Gemini and then just talk back and forth. Okay, move this part there or make this sound a bit more like that. And I find it helps me massage my ideas. So that's something I've been playing with more is talking to it rather than typing. I find it lends itself to a very different kind of relationship. Oh, that's a scary thing to say, but yeah.
I did find something like that. I actually had a call that was a consulting call, but it kind of turned into a little bit of a crash course. And I was able to take kind of the AI recording of that call and give it to my team and say, hey, like this should be a blog post. What can we do with content from this? Which is something I would not have been able to do, before all of the AI stuff.
Love that. Yeah. And we have a question here from Nitesh, who's watching on YouTube. And they say, for Robyn, I'm assuming, what kind of creatives work the best for Amazon ads?
Well, another Disney reference, Amazon ads is kind of like the genie in Aladdin, phenomenal cosmic power, space. So with most creative, you don't really have much choice. It's your primary image and your title. For other things, when we're really going to invest in doing creative, we're going to do it in video, making sure that the first, 5 seconds is really what has a hook. It can't rely on the sound. You need to make sure that people can still get the focus of it. And you need to be remembering that people could be looking at a small thing inside a small screen. So making sure that all of those things hit. And then also making sure for products, like with the AI imaging, make sure your images are at scale and you're looking at the keywords that are working and then developing the creative around the psychographics that are reflective of the keywords that are purchasing to make sure the images match the buyer customer journey.
Thank you. And then my last question for each of our panelists today is, one of the things I love about our industry is it's constantly changing. And so we are constantly having to learn and test and experiment and adapt. So what advice would you have for someone who is getting into PPC today? What is either a skill or a capability that you think they should really work on to be successful in PPC? Can I start with you, Reva?
Totally. So the first thing that came to mind is I think you have to work on letting go of the perfectionism, in that when you're learning this stuff, there is so much trial and error. There's a reason I focus so much on like saying, make sure you're always testing, because some things will work and some things won't work. And there are points when you will make a mistake and it will be something stupid because there's a new box that wasn't there last week that now exists, and you checked it or didn't check it, or it automatically checked and you didn't realize. Like there's always these weird detail oriented caveats, and it's just, nobody's perfect. Like it is legitimately like a complete impossibility that from your first day you will make 0 mistakes. So one thing that we've always worked with our juniors on, and I think is just really important for everyone to realize, not to work with myself on this when I was going through it. It's like, you will mess up. There will be a point you will make a mistake. It will be okay. You will not, like, the world will not end. But I think when you do something that's so test and learn, and that's constantly changing all the time, you have to be able to give yourself that grace and to work with yourself on that. And I know for us type A perfectionists, like, that can be very challenging. So that is just a thing you need to know up front going in, that will make you much better at your job, frankly.
Perfectionism is not the goal. It's not an achievable goal, and so shouldn't be the desired end goal. Yeah. What about you, Mel? What's something you would share with someone who's just getting started in our industry?
Yeah, so my biggest point of wisdom here is actually to challenge conventional wisdom. So if someone says, oh, you know what, we always put our call to action is always shop now because that's what works. Or, here's a weird one. So I found I was running a traffic ad. What did better, shop now or learn now? You would think you always put learn now, right? No, actually shop now is what drove the higher quality and higher volume of traffic. Always challenge conventional wisdom. I think it's really easy to get into these rhetorical spirals where you look at your newsletter and then you defer to the expert. We have to remember that even if you're new, you have training, and your insight and if you question something, that is totally valid, and it's a good premise for a test. So A/B test, I guess, to go along with that, A/B test everything, test everything as much as you reasonably can without driving yourself crazy.
Yes, the name of our event today is Challenging Assumptions, and you're right, it's such an important thing for us to do. I even remember when I first joined Google as part of the new Googler orientation, what they said to us is, you're going to feel like you don't know everything and there's so much to learn, but your superpower you have right now is you're not drunk on Kool-Aid yet. So bring your perspectives, bring your observations, point those things out that your experienced Google colleagues can't see, because it's a superpower you're only going to have for a short time. So I've always remembered that as well, that unique ability to challenge what everyone around you assumes is just, oh yeah, that's normal. So Yep. Thank you for that. And then Robyn, what advice or what skill do you think a new PPCer needs to be successful today?
I am going to keep building off of what's already been said. To, come from a Star Wars perspective, only a Sith deals in absolutes. So sometimes they'll be like, this is the only way to optimize an account. You have to do this one, this one, this one, this one. There's different products that have different customer journeys that have on Amazon, we see that exact match works great here, works horrible here. So it's really important to develop the sense of being curious. This stopped working. Why is that? Oh, looks like we have a button. Amazon just added a new button that says, hey, this product is frequently returned. Maybe instead of focusing on driving ad sales, we need to refine and make sure we're getting the right customers. So the platforms underneath us are constantly shaping under our feet. So if you get stuck in a rut, you could end up taking your clients in the wrong direction.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Well, our time here today is almost up. So thank you so much to Reva, Mel, Robyn, and you, our dear viewers and listeners, for joining us here today. Our next event will be in December 2025, and we are confirming the lineup right now. So if you would like to apply to speak at an upcoming PPC Zone event, you can do so on our website at ppc.zone. Thank you one more time to our sponsor, Cookiebot by Usercentrics for supporting our mission to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. You can learn more at consent.ppc.zone. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. Be sure to follow me on LinkedIn and/or subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you don't miss future PPC Zone events. I look forward to seeing you next time in the zone.